Hello everybody, this is Mr. Combs. Let's look at some of the examples from the information sheet on logic. Logic is the study of arguments, and we'll talk more about arguments later, but for now, let's talk about statements. Logic begins with statements. And statements are sentences that are either true or false. Now, it doesn't matter if they're true or false. It just matters that they can take either a true truth value or a false truth value. So whether or not a statement is true or false is called the truth value. And we'll generally say that we have a truth value of T or F. So let's look at these 5 sentences here, and we'll determine in terms of logic if these are statements. Actually, we want to determine whether these are true statements or false statements or not a statement at all. So let's look at the first one. It says, The Simpsons is a TV show about lawyers. Okay, that's a statement, and it's actually a false statement because The Simpsons is not a TV show about lawyers. It's a TV show about a family, right? So I'm going to say that this is a false statement. All right. What about number 2? Who loves orange soda? Well, that's not a statement at all. You can't apply a truth value of true or false to this. This is a question, and a question is not a statement. So I'm going to say that this is not a statement. And the reason why it's not a statement is because it's a question. And a question can't be true or false, right? So number 3 says, The Walking Dead is the best show on television. Well, that's definitely a statement, but it's not true or false all the time, right? It's not either true all the time or false all the time. Based on who you ask, some people may say that's a true statement, some people say that's false, and another show is the best. So this is not a statement. And the reasoning behind that is because it's an opinion, so it's not a fact. So that's an opinion. All right, what about number 4? Some snakes are poisonous. Okay, this is a statement. And in fact, it's a true statement. Some snakes are poisonous, right? So I'm going to say that this is a true statement. All right, number 5 says, Come skiing with me this weekend. Well, you can't really apply a truth value of T or F to that. So I'm going to say this is not a statement. And actually, it's a command. It's telling somebody to do something, and a command is not a statement. Okay, I hope that helps. Continue reading the information sheet, and in a few minutes we'll look at, or you can push pause in this video as you read on, and then there's another set of examples to look at that the video will look at in just a moment. All right, so this next set of examples asks to look asks for us to look at a statement and determine whether it's a simple or a compound statement. And we want to remember that a compound statement uses words such as and, or, not, or phrases such as if, then, and if and only if, which can be abbreviated as IFF. So simple statements do not contain those words. So if we have an example that is a simple statement, it will just be one simple statement. And if we have two or more ideas combined together, then that will be a compound statement. So let's look at number one. Number one says, if you do not have feathers, you are not a bird. Well, that one has if and then. Well, it doesn't have then, but the then is implied. But it also has the word not. So if you do not have feathers, then you are not a bird. This is a compound statement, so I think this is compound. All right, number two, the campus is closed today. None of those words, and or not, if then, or if and only if, those are called connectives, by the way, as you probably read on the information sheet. So this is just a simple statement. Uh-oh. Number three, Jenna is going to Europe this summer. Okay, it doesn't have any of those connectives. It just simply says Jenna is going to Europe this summer. So I think this is a simple statement. And finally, if you want to ride the roller coaster, you must be at least 48 inches tall and have no food or drink. So this has if, doesn't have then, but it's implied, and it has and. So this is definitely compound. So this is a compound statement. All right. Continue reading the information sheet, and you may want to pause the video while you do that. And in just a moment, we will look at another set of examples. Okay, let's look at the next set of examples, and let's have some fun. So one of the things we want to be able to do is to write statements in logic as symbols. This is sort of like taking a situation in algebra or a sentence in words and translating it into an expression, an algebraic expression. So you may have done that. You may have taken something like 5 less than the number of cats and let a variable represent the number of cats, C maybe, and then said C minus 5. So you translate it from words into symbols, and we want to be able to do the same exact thing with statements in logic. So there are some symbols that we need to review. These were indicated on the information sheet, but let's review them right now. The first symbol is the symbol for not, and that is called a tilde, and it's just that wavy line there. Anytime you see that, that means the word not, and we use that to write a negation. We also have a caret. That's what I like to call a caret, and it's it's the symbol that you use it to, if you're typing, to indicate something is raised to a power. So you might say 2 raised to the second power is 2 caret 2, right? And that is used to write a conjunction, and that corresponds to the word and. If we flip that upside down, we have a disjunction. That's what we write using this symbol, and it corresponds to the word or. If we have an if-then statement where we say if something happens, then something else happens, that's a conditional statement, and the symbol that we use for that is the arrow. And then finally, if we have a arrow or a symbol with an arrow on both ends, or I guess an arrow with a point on both ends, that's used to represent the words if and only if, and that's used to write a statement called a biconditional statement. And basically what that means is that both things are true. So if we have the statement, if you are a bird, then you have feathers, then using the biconditional, this double arrow means that has the same truth value as the reverse. If you have feathers, then you are a bird. So those two things are the same. So it's a shorthand way of writing if P, then Q, and if Q, then P. So what we want to be able to do, if we have these two statements, P, which is you are a human, and Q, you have feathers, we want to be able to write each of these compound statements using symbols, using P and Q and the symbols that we just reviewed. So, our first statement is, you do not have feathers. So the simple statement there is, you have feathers. So that's Q. But we're saying you do not have feathers. So we need to use the tilde to negate that statement, you have feathers. So if I wanted to write this statement in symbols, I would say not Q. So you do not have feathers is not Q. All right, number 2. You have feathers or you are human. So I'm going to use or. That's the disjunction. That's the V shape or the upside down caret. And I will say you have feathers. That's Q. So I'm going to say Q. Or P. So you have feathers or you are human. So number 3 states, you do not have feathers and you are human. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the statement, you do not have feathers. So you have feathers is Q, so you do not have feathers is not Q. So that's not Q. But we have to combine that or connect that to you are human using and. So I'm going to use the caret. So you do not have feathers and you are human. So you are human is P. So that's not Q and P. So the next one says you are not human and you do not have feathers. So you are not human. P is you are human, so I'm going to say not P. Then I'm going to use and for the conjunction. You do not have feathers. So that is, you do not have feathers is not Q. All right, so let's look at number 5. Number 5 is a little bit different because I see the words, it is not true that. And anytime you see it is not true that, that phrase means that you're going to negate the whole thing that comes after that phrase. So if I say it is not true that, I'm going to start out with a not, but this is going to be a not that affects the entire rest of the statement. So I'm going to put the entire rest of the statement in parentheses so that I don't look like something in number 3, where if I just put the not there without the parentheses, whoever is reading my symbols will assume that I just mean not Q. But in fact, I mean not the entire statement. So it is not true that you are human. So you are human is P. So P comes next. Or, that's the disjunction. So that's or. You do not have feathers. So not Q. So it is not true. This whole thing is not true, that you are not human, or you do not have feathers. Sometimes it is not true will be read as it is not the case. So it is not true and it is not the case. Those are the same thing. Let me just go ahead and write. It is not true sometimes is also it is not the case. So it is not the case that you are human or you do not have feathers. That's also the same. All right, let's look back at number 6. If you are human, then you do not have feathers. Okay, so this is an if-then statement. So what I'm saying is, if you are human, so that's P, so P comes first, then you do not have feathers. So P, arrow, you do not have feathers. So you have feathers is Q, so I need the negation of that. So not Q. This next one, number 7, says, if you are human, then you are not human. That's a very strange statement, but we can still write it in symbols. Remember, it doesn't matter if what we are working with is true or false. It just has to either have a true or false truth value. So if you are human, so if P, then you are not human, not P. Well, that makes no sense, but we can still write it in symbols. And now, for this last one, you are human if and only if you do not have feathers. Remember, that means if you are human, then you do not have feathers. And if you do not have feathers, then you are human. So it means both of those. The way to represent that is with the double arrow. So I'm going to say you are human is P. If and only if, so I'm going to use the double arrow, you do not have feathers. So having feathers is Q, so I'm going to say not Q. All right. So continue working through the information sheet, and you may want to pause the video as you read until you get to the next set of examples. In just a moment, we will look at the last set of examples for this information sheet. All right, let's look at this last set of examples. And what these examples are asking us to do is just the opposite of what we did in the previous set. Here we're given symbols, and we're asked to write these symbols in words. So we're going to use the information from the information sheet that you read earlier. We're going to use the tilde for not, or whenever we see the tilde, we're going to write the word not. Whenever we see the symbol for and, if then, or if and only if. We're gonna actually write those words. But then we also want to use commas strategically. So if things are set off with by parentheses in our symbols, we may want to use a comma to set those off as well, so that our meaning is clear. And I'll show you what I mean by this first example. So if our statements are the moose is brown, the duck is white, and the cat is black, P, Q, R, then let's write each of these compound statements in words. So I have P and Q in parentheses, or R. So P and Q means if P is the moose is brown and Q is the duck is white, the moose is brown and the duck is white. So I'm going to say the moose is brown and the duck is white. And I notice that that is set off by parentheses, so I'm going to use a comma to set these words off from the other words. So the moose is brown and the duck is white. And then I have or are, so that means or the cat is black. So that's that statement. All right, let's look at another statement. Let's look at the second one. This says P, arrow, and then in parentheses, Q or not R. So that arrow corresponds to if then. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say if and P is the moose is brown, so I'm going to say if the moose is brown, then all this that's in parentheses is happening, okay? So if the moose is brown, then Q, the duck is white, or the cat is, there's a tilde there, so that means not, so the cat is not black. So if the moose is brown, then the duck is white or the cat is not black. And notice in that after the then, I'm not going to use a comma because all that goes together. So I don't need to set anything off. That's all in parentheses together, so it goes together. All right, what about number 3? Let's look at number 3. I'm trying to do these, or I'm doing these in different colors so they, you don't get mixed up, the words mixed up. So this has an if and only if, or this statement will be an if and only if statement because I have the double arrow. So the first thing I'm saying is are, so I'm going to say the cat is black if and only if now in parentheses this is I could set this off with comma. So the cat is black if and only if this whole thing happens. The moose is brown. The moose is brown, and the duck is not white because I have a not Q. Okay? Let's try the next one. Now, this is that not outside of parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to say is it is not true. So it is not true that, and then I can say whatever I need to say. So it is not true that, this is an if-then statement. So it is not true that if the cat is black, sorry, I'm having some trouble with my pen today. So if the cat is black, then the duck is not white. All right, let's look at this next one. This one says, it has an if-then statement in parentheses. So I'm going to say, if the moose is not brown, then the cat is not black. Okay, that's the first part of this. So if the moose is not brown, then the cat is not black. Then I'm going to put a comma to show that that is all to be considered together. Then I have or, Q, or the duck is white. All right, let's look at this last statement. I have not P and Q together. Then I have an arrow, meaning this is an if-then statement, and then I have not R. So what I'm saying here is, remember, this is a tilde or a negation on the outside of parentheses. So what I am saying is, it is not true. Okay. But then this is an if-then statement. So I'm going to say if it is not true that the moose is brown, or the duck, and the duck is white. The moose is brown, and the duck is white. So if it is not true that the moose is brown and the duck is white, comma, then the cat is not black. All right. Well, I hope this helps. I know this is probably not something that you have studied in a math class before. You'll have a homework assignment, so if you have any questions over that, be sure to ask those next time in class. All right, I will see you next time. Thank you very much.